Andrew Kenton became the most hated man in 90 Day Fiancé history during Season 8. And frankly, he earned every ounce of that hatred. His treatment of Amira Lolisa was so manipulative, so cruel, and so calculated that even production seemed shocked by his behavior. Viewers watched in horror as Andrew prioritized his own comfort over Amira's safety, gaslit her into dangerous situations, and then played the victim when called out. What makes his downfall deserved is not just what he did, but his complete refusal to take accountability, his weaponization of screenshots to create false narratives, and his eventual rebranding as D-Bag Drew, leaning into villainy when he realized redemption was impossible. This is the story of a man who destroyed his own reputation and has no one to blame but himself. Andrew met Amira, a French-Egyptian woman, on an international dating app. They had what seemed like an instant connection, and when they met in person in Las Vegas, Andrew proposed within 3 days. Amira said yes, and the K-1 visa process began. But then COVID-19 hit, and French citizens were banned from entering the United States. With Amira's visa expiring, Andrew concocted a plan. She would fly to Mexico, quarantine for 2 weeks, and then they'd cross the border together into the US. It seemed reasonable on paper, but Andrew failed to account for one critical detail. Amira could still be detained and deported. That's exactly what happened. Amira arrived in Mexico and was immediately detained by authorities at the airport. She spent 3 terrifying days locked up, unable to communicate with anyone, not knowing what would happen to her. And where was Andrew during this nightmare? Enjoying his resort vacation. Cameras captured him lounging by the pool, sipping drinks, eating at restaurants, and living his best life while his fiancée was detained. When producers asked why he wasn't doing more to help her, Andrew shrugged and said he'd made some calls, but there was nothing else he could do. So instead of flying home or camping outside government offices demanding answers, he decided to make the most of the trip he'd already paid for. Amira was eventually deported back to France, traumatized and heartbroken. But Andrew wasn't done. With only 40 days left on her visa, he pressured her to try again, this time suggesting she fly to Serbia alone, quarantine for 2 weeks, and then board a plane to America. Amira was terrified, still processing the trauma from Mexico, but Andrew manipulated her into agreeing. He sent her text messages saying she'd face an angry fiancé if she didn't come, weaponizing his anger to control her decisions. Amira had a panic attack before the flight and chose not to board. Andrew's response was to demand his engagement ring back instead of asking if she was okay. At the tell-all, Andrew's behavior reached peak toxicity. He refused to appear on set with Amira, staying in a separate room and walking off multiple times. When confronted about his manipulative texts and his abandonment of Amira in Mexico, Andrew claimed he was given a bad edit by TLC. He started posting screenshots on Instagram, alleging that Amira had orchestrated the entire Mexico plan, that she was fame-hungry and using the show for exposure, and that producers manipulated footage to make him look like a villain. Some of those screenshots showed Amira talking about a talent agent in Serbia, which Andrew used to claim she prioritized her career over their relationship. But even if those screenshots were real, they didn't erase his behavior. He still enjoyed a vacation while she was detained. He still sent threatening texts. He still pressured her into dangerous situations. The internet turned on Andrew with a vengeance. Fans accused him of emotional abuse, manipulation, and gaslighting. His mother, Lori, made things worse by allegedly leaving cruel comments on Amira's Instagram, calling her ugly and questioning her morals, comments that were later deleted. Andrew then got into a bizarre feud with beloved franchise star David Toborowski, threatening him to an MMA fight after David recorded a supportive cameo message for Amira. Andrew called David a Ninja Turtle, Penguin, Batman-ass bitch, and said he'd beat him down. David, ever the class act, responded that he didn't wish ill on Andrew but wasn't intimidated by his antics. When fans failed to believe Andrew's claims of a bad edit, he leaned into the villain role, rebranding himself as D-Bag Drew. He admitted to being a self-proclaimed D-Bag and said he couldn't help it. He posted that he was surfing the hate tsunami and getting pretty good at it, adding that he apologizes to absolutely nobody. It was a desperate attempt to reclaim power in a narrative he'd already lost. He auctioned off Amira's engagement ring on eBay with a starting bid of $1,000, a petty move designed to hurt her publicly. Today, Andrew is largely irrelevant. He lost nearly 200 pounds after hitting rock bottom, moved to Portland, and now works as a writer and poet. In November 2021, he was hospitalized with a heart malfunction, atrial fibrillation, a wake-up call about his health. His dating app profile was discovered on Bumble, showing he's still trying to find love despite his toxic reputation. Meanwhile, Amira moved to Las Vegas, works as a model and influencer, and has completely moved on. Andrew's downfall was deserved because he chose manipulation over accountability, cruelty over compassion, and victimhood over growth. He had every opportunity to apologize, to own his mistakes, and to become better. Instead, he doubled down on being terrible, and that's why nobody feels sorry for him.